Hello and welcome to Metaphysical Life Support. My name is Naomi Eklund. We are here today with Graciela Teofield. She is a Reiki master and a vibrational sound therapist. She's a certified practitioner. She's also a mom, an auntie, a grandma, I think maybe a great-grandma. She's been a wife. She's just so many things with such a rich history. And we just got done talking about her being a daughter and granddaughter. So I wanted to talk with her because we have a shared experience of being spiritual moms to boys. Now, Jen, who one day will get on this side of the camera, she's our amazing person behind the camera right now. But one of these days we'll get her up here. And she also has amazing sons. They're my son's roommates and amazingly good friends. Let's talk a little bit about raising boys as spiritual moms and raising boys who are men and who don't necessarily see the world the way our fathers or husbands did.
All right.
So you have two sons?
I have two sons and I have two daughters, actually. And it was interesting raising all four of them. As you know, everybody has their own personality and things like that. And raising them was so much fun. Now that I look back at it, sometimes I got a little weary because I didn't have calm children. I didn't have calm children. They really did bring me a lot of youthfulness, a lot of vigor, and it was all I could do to keep up.
So, well, I've only raised boys. So tell me a little bit about maybe some of the differences in raising boys and girls when you're an intuitive mom.
Oh, with the boys, as an intuitive mom, with the boys, it's really was a lot more direct. And all four of the children kind of knew that mom was a little bit different. Mom handled things a little bit differently. And why does she know that? How did you tell her? Or did you tell her? And with the boys, it was a little bit more direct. I could be a little bit more direct. And with my daughters, I had to be a little bit more, I had to use my skills a little bit more, that intuition. And they all knew mom was just a little bit different from the regular everyday moms. Yeah, my mom don't do it like that. So.
Now I remember my son more than once coming home from school saying, "Why can't you just be a normal mom?"
Actually, mine came and said, "I'm so glad you're not like the other moms." And I'm like, "What does that mean? What do you mean I'm not like the other moms?" Oh, okay. But it's
now
funny.
He appreciates it.
Now, I just had a conversation last night of my daughter remembering something that I used to do with the children. I would always give them evening tea before bedtime. Because I believed in the effect of the L-tryptophans in the milk. And I would make them this tea. Well, we laugh now because at the time I didn't realize that the tea that I was making them, which they really enjoyed, was a black caffeinated tea. Okay, and I used the milk. I'm going for the L-tryptophans in the milk to calm them down, but I'm giving them black tea. And I'm like, and here's your tea for tonight, sweethearts. And then we'll have our prayers, and then we'll have this. And they're drinking the caffeine, and I'm putting them to bed, and I'm thinking, why won't these kids go to sleep? We laughed about that just last night. Now, mind you, my children are 38, 41, 44, and 50. So we get to laugh about a lot of things nowadays.
And once they become parents, then there's a whole different point of view, isn't there?
Yes, and they're all parents, and they've given me such beautiful grandchildren. And honestly, they, as I often mention, they are the jewels in my crown. There are 4 original jewels, and then I've got all these other jewels. There's 18 grandbabies.
Oh my gosh.
And 5 great grandbabies. And these are jewels. They just bless my heart. And every single one of them is different. Every single one.
So one of the things that I find interesting is the way children discover their spirituality.
Mm.
And again, I can only speak from the place of having raised a boy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was brought up in a Catholic church, Catholic school. So I was really in that whole system. There was no choice, you know, I mean, that choice was made for me, which was not entirely bad. I mean, I love that I grew up knowing and learning a lot of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But my son, I tried to take him to some different, like, unity churches and various churches. He just never really could relate. Like his body just didn't want to be there. So I tried to honor that.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, though, I would find him watching shows like The Last Airbender, which is all about choosing right and wrong and mastering the elements. And so there's this huge spiritual component going on. But it doesn't look like church.
Yeah, yeah.
What did you have anything like that with your boys?
You know, I raised the children in church. I was raised in church, and then I raised my children in church to know the stories, to understand love, to understand the difference between right and wrong. So I went that route. But as they began to become into their own identity, I really had to honor who they decided they wanted to be. And they honored who I decided I wanted to be, because honestly, I was coming through church. I was a lay person. I had been encouraged to go into seminary and to become a pastor and all of that. And just as I was saying yes to that, there was a change. I had to step away from the church environment. And it was a little bit devastating to a lot of people, because that's the identity, that's how they saw me, as a church individual. And it took a little while before I could really communicate to them that I'm no longer a church girl, but I am a God girl. I have now sat in His presence and nurtured our relationship without a lot of interference, so that I could get a direct conduit to knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And then after that had happened, I began to watch my children and see that they had started the process way before I had. They are such God-centered people.
So
And
by the process, you mean directly relating to the divine rather than relating to the divine through a church?
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. That could be a conversation all by itself. But it was important to me to have my own personal relationship and not have to check with the rules of a particular church to see if I was okay to have a conversation with my creator. I wanted my own. I want it to be taught. And it's interesting because I also wanted my own mentor, spiritual mentor. I wanted my own shaman. I wanted my own medicine woman to teach me the ways of spiritual health, wealth, and knowledge with the wisdom to function. Well, I remember sitting in the presence and going, where are my teachers? Where are my teachers? And the message that I got, and I might catch a lot of flack for this one, but it's okay. It's like, am I not enough?
So that was God speaking onto your heart.
Speaking to me, speaking to my heart. Am I not enough? You still need another person to go. You need to go through another person. Am I not enough to sit with you and communicate directly to you for the things that you're seeking? And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
And so your children had that sense before you did?
They were done with church well before I was. They were done with church. They were done with the rules and the regulations that didn't make any sense, that seemed a bit hypocritical to them. And they wanted their own personal relationships. They wanted their own personal walk. And I'm like, you're grown now. I gave you a foundation. And I remember one of my sons going, I'm not really trusting man too much, but I trust God. I trust God.
A mother's heart.
And I'm like, oh, thank you. Thank you for staying with my children. Thank you. And so now I see my children as very, very spiritually attuned. They now ask more questions about the unseen. Well, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? And sometimes I don't have the answers. Most of the times I don't have the answers. I have you asked your creator? Have you asked your spiritual guides? Did you sit with your spiritual guide today? Did you ask your ancestors? When's the last time you sat quiet to hear a message so that you could get an answer to your questions? So those are kind of the ways that we are now, and I love it. I love who they are spiritually. I love who they are in their character. But honestly, it was a road that I had never seen walked out before. I've never seen another parent who was like me have a family, and then how you raise your family. So I'm grateful that it turned out okay. I didn't have a model. I'm grateful that the children turned out all right.
Well, I love the way that what I'm hearing is you gave them the same grace that your grandmas gave you.
True.
Which was, you didn't make them wrong for what was natural to them.
Very true. When they were ready to be done with church, I was ready for them to be done with it. Even though I was still in church. It's like, okay, babe.
It's interesting that we live in a society that has all these rules around how we're supposed to relate to God. Well, what is more personal than your relationship with the divine?
Exactly.
And how do you out there know what my relationship with the divine would be? Now, if you're guiding me and saying, it's good to spend time alone, or, look at your heart. Is it kind? Is it, there's guidance. And this goes back to the same thing we talked in a previous episode when we were talking about Reiki, is I am perfectly fine with people having more wisdom or knowledge or having something to teach me. But you don't get to usurp my own knowing. And I think that we end up with a lot of children in rebellion or feeling, what's the word I'm looking for? Disempowered, because no one's actually saying God lives in you. How does God live in you? And that's the essential question.
Naomi, we are living in a season, currently we're in this pandemic, right? Well, this particular season, these children that are coming forward, these indigo children, these crystal children, they're not having it. They'll learn the old school, but they're not having it. They're not going to walk out the way we walk. they're coming to make a change and take us forward. And they are witnessing some of the just dysfunctional ways that humanity has arrived, has been functioning, and they're not going to have it. They are technically sound and gifted with technology. They are all about, how do I work my gifts, my talents? What are your gifts? This is what I do. What do you do? It's kind of like some of these new movies that we see that are out and about, where different, what are the superheroes? And each one has the Marvel card. Each one has their own gift or talent. One does fire, one does water, one can fly, one can pierce through. All these, they know who they are, and they're coming into their own. They're not going to do business as usual. And I'm so happy that I lived long enough to see these children, these really supernatural children function with their gifts and talents. And we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. It's coming.
I am so with you. I look at, like there's The Last Airbender. How many kids have grown up with The Last Airbender? And Star Wars, the thought of the Force and good and evil. And this is a daily choice in focusing the Force. Well, what is laying on our hands and Reiki but focusing the Force?
With intention.
Exactly. And then, you talk about the crystal children and the indigo children. For people who are not familiar with those terms, those are children who are born with more of their gifts open. If you think in terms of like the movie The Matrix, the children who are able to bend spoons and be seers. We all have some of that. It's interesting that you say all this, because yesterday I was texting Jen, because technology has been something that's been a bit of a challenge for me in general. But I have to persevere because I have things I want to do and I need technology for it. And I said to her, when you think about it, and I'm a few years older than Jen, but if you think about it, our generation, like your generation, my generation, because I'm just at the end of the boomers, we grew up in, there was change, but there was a very long tail on that change. And so, men in my generation are still thinking like their fathers more. And that is really profoundly obvious to me. Too often I hear men in my generation say, well, these kids today, and whenever I do, I just let go on them. It's like, kids today are inheriting this earth. We need to listen to them because the way we did it isn't working, right?
Correct.
And so, but the kids that are coming in now, they were born into change at a rate that is even beyond our comprehension. We can work to keep up with technology, but these children were born into it. They know it. They live as change and as change agents. It's exciting.
It's exciting. It's so exciting. For me, technology is a challenge for me too. And I'm always afraid that I'm going to break something. And then I'm going to have to pay to get it fixed because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And so, like, my 9-year-old grandson, he says, you don't know how to do that? I'm like, I'm trying to do something. He says, here, give it to me, Gran. And he takes it and he's like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what just happened? He says, oh, I just did this. It's just like that. I'm like, well, who showed you how to do that? Showed me how to do that. Mom, Gran, you just do this, this, and this. Then the 2-year-old, I had my iPad down on the floor. And I had it open, and he comes up, and he has access so much. I'm like, how did you get this? How did you open this? And he's not real verbal yet. He's not verbal yet. And yet he knew how to work my iPad. I'm like, okay.
I know, it's fabulous. And I'm sitting here avidly making notes for our next time we get to have a conversation. It's like when you're selling those stories. My son went with his dad. He was about 4 years old, and he's 22 now. So, what is that, 16 years ago? Am I doing math right? Anyway, he went with his dad. They went to a coffee shop, and there was a lady who couldn't figure out how to get into her email. Now, keep in mind, my son is 4 years old, and I did have a computer at home, but I didn't know he knew anything about it. He walked over to the woman in the coffee shop, and he helped her get into her email. Talk about collective consciousness and downloads, right?
Oh my gosh, I love it. I'm so excited for this next generation. So excited for this new beginning. This is a terrible time that we're having in pandemic, but it's the end of the old and the beginning of the new. And we are here at the beginning. We're walking in, we're watching as these young people are saying, no more, no more. We're doing it we're going to try something else.
Your
That's
mouth to
over.
God's ears.
Man.
Amazing.
Amazing.
So we're in the young people fan club.
Yes.
So all the grumpy
absolutely.
old people who are anti-millennial and anti-kid, you're in the wrong place.
Wrong place. Wrong place. Get your mind right.
I want to live long enough to see my grandkids and what they accomplish.
Oh my gosh.
It's so cool. Well, we're going to wrap up this segment. You have been so gracious for your time this afternoon. We will schedule time to talk again because there's so much richness to talk about. You're a beautiful guest. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts, everybody's hearts here. Your sharing is so rich. And I think for those of us who grew up without a strong family, hearing about the beauty and strength in your family is very encouraging.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. I look forward to, when the quarantine's over, we can go for coffee.
Indeed.
I still have my birthday coffee gift certificate you put in my card. So
good.
My treat will go for coffee.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Graciela Teofield, for being here today. This has been Metaphysical Life Support. My name is Naomi Eklund. The purpose of Metaphysical Life Support is to share uplifting, inspiring, and interesting people to talk about our journey, to talk about our humanness, and to explore the many, many ways that we're human, and to understand that the metaphysical aspect of our human life is a driving force. And we need to be able to think about it, hear it, have tools for it, and know that we're not alone in it. Thank you. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe so we can continue to bring you interesting and dynamic people. Have a great day.